The ECB, aka Europe's central bank, just flipped. We know that this central bank has been exploring a digital euro equivalent, but we also know that they have been really experimenting with DLT for a while. And even last year, around May, we saw their DLT settlement trial begin for wholesale settlement. But what's more interesting about this is what just got announced today. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. Let's dive on in and let's actually start off with this announcement from May. Because to a lot of people, this might seem like old news. But the significance of this trial is that this was tied back to a ton of institutional players. In fact, it's actually tied back to a lot of institutional players that Ripple has passed, partnerships or pilots with. And I find that very interesting because, again, we're going to go over all of those players, including, of course, like DecaBank, right? DecaBank is tied right back to Ripple custody, aka Medico previously, but also a lot of additional players were tied to this, which I will talk about that with this announcement over here. But here we actually have what their upcoming trials and experiments will include. Number one was DVP transactions in primary and secondary markets, securities lifecycle management, automated wholesale payments, and payment versus payment transactions. So pretty straightforward, right? Nothing too crazy here. And then, of course, in June, they announced 48 participants in wholesale DLT trials, including HKMA. Now, if the HKMA sounds familiar, well, it should, because Ripple was actually partnered up with them to explore EHKD use cases, which is with a central bank digital currency. If we scroll down, we could see that they were conducting wholesale DLT settlement trials in central bank money, because again, that's what wholesale is. And this did feature the Hong Kong Monetary Authority as a participant to trial cross-border or payment versus payment transactions. Now, what's even more interesting about this, right? Because there's a lot of great use cases mixed in here. This is where they actually kind of expand on that. So one group of tests were utilizing like tokenized deposits. And then, of course, there's other use case settlements around this. You also have, payment versus payment transactions, tokenized, real estate transactions. Then, of course, they do mention a few other ones, for an example, like central banks of Germany with their trigger solution, France with wholesale CBDC, and Italy with like the TIPS hash link. And then, of course, you have the Project Meridian FX, which is, cross-border payments for the FX market. That was actually with the Bank of England. There's so many experiments here, but the number one thing that I'm actually focused on is what the ECB is doing, because we know, for an example, Christine Lagarde has met with Ripple many times in the past. She's like the big player behind the ECB at this point. But also, I look at all the names that were actually, big banks tied to this. For example, you have Crédit Agricole, Euroclear, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, Iberclear, JP Morgan, Societe Generale Forge, and UBS. Now, we know back in 2018, Crédit Agricole did partner up with Ripple. They were actually utilizing Ripple in this experiment. And we are proud to be using our Jetstream FX trading platform and API to contribute to Crédit Agricole's innovative experiment based on Ripple's blockchain. We're testing out with Ripple's solution aimed at simplifying and speeding up cross-border credit transfers carried out by our customers. Now, this goes all the way back to 2018. Now, we don't know if this is still live today. We don't know if they're, still testing or trialing or anything like that. We didn't really hear too much from this, but it is one connection. Now, HSBC, on the other hand, which is one of the biggest banks out there, they actually partnered up with Ripple's, Medico, which is now Ripple custody, right? This was back in 2023. This is still fresh. We know that this is still fresh, and this is around tokenized securities. And I think that this also evolved into tokenized gold use cases as well. We know that this is still live today. We can confirm that. Next up on the list, though, we have Societe Generale Forge. We know, so if we go back to this announcement, they just announced that their USV stablecoin, which I did also include in a video recently, will be rolled out on the XRP ledger. So there's a lot of connections here with some of the big players that are utilized in this experiment with the ECB, including even the HKMA, which I find very interesting. Now, the actual announcement from the ECB was the European Central Bank looks to create a blockchain-based payment system. Interesting. Now, again, we could speculate and say, oh yeah, Ripple's going to be utilized here. The XRP ledger is going to be utilized, right? But is there actual proof behind this? Well, let's talk about this. Number one, here is the full-on announcement. The Eurosystem expands initiative to settle DLT-based transactions and central bank money, wholesale transactions, basically, right? The Eurosystem steps up efforts for innovative market infrastructures, two-track approach, develop solution which is interoperable with existing infrastructures, look into long-term integrated solution as well. Now we have here that the first, as soon as feasible, the Eurosystem will develop and implement a safe and efficient platform for such settlements and central bank money through an interoperability link with target services. Could we, speculate that Quant might be used here? We definitely could. Or even Chainlink. So a concrete time plan will be announced in due course. Second, the Eurosystem will look into a more integrated long-term solution for settling DLT-based transactions and central bank money. This will also include international operations such as foreign exchange settlement. Guys, that's the big one. Again, I don't know if I need to mention it again, but $7.5 trillion per day. The foreign exchange market is huge. So this is definitely interesting to see because, again, the ECB has now officially flipped. We could actually see them talking down here that they are embracing innovation without compromising on safety and stability. This is an important contribution to enhancing European financial market efficiency through innovation. Our approach will pay due attention to the Eurosystem's goal of achieving a more harmonized and integrated European financial ecosystem. And then, of course, we do have a lot of those initiatives. Number one, the initiative will contribute to establishing an integrated European market for digital assets in line with the Governing Council's call for promoting a digital capital markets union. That goes back to 2024, which is why I say, you could argue that a lot of this news is old when we, bring up, for an example, the EU actually starting their trials. But guys, this is still fresh. This stuff is still fresh. It takes a little bit of time. But we also have so many of their, work that, so much of their work down here, this is 64 participants in their exploratory work on new technologies for wholesale central bank money settlement that got conducted between May and November of 2024. That's this announcement here. And it comprised of central banks, financial market participants, and even DLT platform operators. The opportunity to conduct over 50 trials and experiments. Trials included actual settlement in central bank money, while experiments were tested with mock settlement. Now, again, are there any connections back to Ripple and XRP, or are we just kind of grasping at straws with some of the connections to the names that were tied to these trials? Well, let's actually look into that. Number one, the Digital Euro Association. Now, this association is definitely a key organization. Even though it is a not-for-profit think tank organization, essentially, they're actually pushing the digital euro forward, which is a CBDC. Also, euro stablecoins, they're pushing that forward as well. And we have a quote here from the chairman: the digitization of the monetary system is progressing. The monetary system will undergo fundamental changes over the next decade. And we know that they're still here. They're still building. Here are some of their gold members. Number one is Ripple, Aleph Zero, Eurodollar. Silver members include the HBAR Foundation. Then you also have those bronze members, which is like DZ Bank, Circle, Hamburg Commercial Bank, Infineon, and then Frankfurt School. And then, of course, here are some of the announcements recently. Number one, Digital Euro Association joins forces with Accenture. This was on January 29th of this year. Accenture is an absolute massive player in the world of finance. So again, we could still see that the DEA is moving forward on their engagements. And they already have a few projects here, right? We could see some of their projects here on what they're doing, their events. And even over here, we have a little bit of a breakdown of what the Digital Euro Association really kind of does with these players. Big shout out to XRP Drops for this video clip. Here we have CBDC hierarchy of needs, stability and resilience, security, trust and speed, access and inclusion, interoperability, and overlay services. Check it out. One second. Let me make sure that this is playing audio. All right, we should be good.
So it's a team of, I think it's about 35 people globally. So we're really taking CBDC seriously. We work with lots of different banks. The most important part, though, is to start with stable and resilient and secure base. If you think about a CBDC, it's the country's money. It's the sovereign nation money. It's the most important money, digital currency, whatever we call it, that we have in our countries. So the foundation of everything that we do at Ripple, but importantly CBDCs, is standards, consistency, and robust technology. One of the things around standards as well is very important. Standards are helping to develop a set of standards for the way that we operate CBDCs, where we operate CBDCs and how. That actually comes from our history of 10 years of doing cross-border payments, where we've helped to get the standards of cross-border payments to a certain level. Therefore, other companies and other providers can actually do this. So foundation number one is stability. The second one, surprise, surprise, is security and trust. We have to have security. This is our currency for our nation. But part of security and trust is clear regulations and transparency. Regulations are still work in progress. All CBDCs are still very, very sort of, let's say mid-stage. I think they're past early stage, but mid-stage in terms of how to regulate and work with them. And transparency and privacy is a big discussion which happens around this. The third level then is once you've got the foundations, this is then to start get the interesting part and really start to see the benefits of CBDCs. Access and inclusion, not just for people, for citizens, but the banks, the fintechs, the different liquidity providers, lots of different people, companies and institutions want to operate with this. So we look at this layer, which in essence, is coming around an API type layer and bringing in other parties and other solutions. Number 4 is interoperability. We actually think about this from day one. It's not something we think about later on. And this is all about how do we connect with the domestic system, the current system in the countries, but other systems, CBDCs, stablecoins, native cryptos, they will all be part of the future and they all need to work together. And somehow we need to make that happen. So we think about that a lot. And then finally, for me, as the businessman, the most exciting bit is all around what we can do with this. So once we've built it, once it works and it's interoperable and it's secure and it's resilient, how can we use this to pay our people better, to earn money, to send money across borders, to earn micropayments, to do all the innovation that CBDCs allow? So that section for me is the most exciting, but you need the foundations first.
And that's exactly what's being built right now, is the foundation for all of this to become a reality. And if that voice does sound, familiar, that's because that's James Wallace, the head of CBDC engagements at Ripple. We know that Ripple has been taking a massive, massive stride to becoming a big name in the European markets. I think that when we think about the digital euro or, any of these big innovations, we consistently, especially around the XRP ledger, we consistently think, all right, well, it has to be Ripple only, right? It's only going to be Ripple. No, even James Wallace is telling you interoperability. There's going to be, crypto, stablecoins, these things of value that have significant utility. There's going to be multiple winners here. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. You're going to have, specific ledgers for specific use cases. It's going to be a multi-ledger future. But Ripple and the XRP-L and XRP definitely stand at the forefront of this because Ripple is the one actively participating on almost all of these massive, organizations, these moves being made around this technology, the pilot programs. I mean, even if we go all the way back, and big shout out to, King Solomon for this. I even said over here, cue the but it's old news replies, because if we go and look at this, this goes all the way back to 2021. This is actually from the Central Bank of France. They have openly discussed Ripple and XRP as a possible platform for Europe's central bank digital currency. Like, this goes all the way back to 2020. Like, these things, you can't make these things up. Like, when we think about what's happening here, it's very clear that there are so many major connections right back to Ripple that it kind of makes you wonder, you know, are we really sitting here thinking if Ripple's going to be used or not? Or has Ripple already made, you know, a path to be embedded within some of these massive, you know, financial ecosystems? It kind of feels like that, especially even now in the US. I mean, think about all of the meetings that Ripple has had over the last couple weeks since the election. And then I think about all of the meetings that Ripple has had in, you know, years prior to like 2020. I mean, it's very clear that Ripple is a much bigger name in the space than what a lot of people actually realize. That's why all of these documents, even the old news, even the, you know, old pilots, they're so crucial to focus on even today, because now we're starting to see things happen that, you know, previously, when we think about these announcements, people would have, their heads would have spun. They would have been like, wow, this is insane. We now have central banks talking about openly utilizing DLT platforms for settlement of wholesale money, central bank money. Think about how significant that actually is. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord on the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.